Well, welcome back to the Environment and Climate Committee. We are reconvening now to commence the agenda, and I call first for apologies, please. I have an apology from Councillor Bowater, Councillor Fulton. I have one from let's have a look here. One from Councillor Edgar, actually. Councillor Edgar, Glenys Payne, and Mary's. Now, the important question is, do we have a quorum?
Just in terms of apology, should we also have down Councillor Skinner and Councillor Sampson?
No, I haven't. I'll put them in. Can we add to that Councillor Skinner and Councillor Sampson, please? Thank you. Right, it's been moved by Councillor Noonan. Have we seconded that? I'll put that. Those in favour will say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. The ayes have it. Now, we've got the interests here, but I want to deal first, I think, with the confirmation of order of business. Now, it has been suggested to me that we look at deferring the consideration of the progress update on the, no, that's not it. It's the urban development one, I think it is. It's the climate, no. Was it? Okay. Oh, the update on the implementation of the National Policy Statement on Urban Development. I've had a request from a member that we defer that until a meeting, our last meeting of the Environment and Climate Committee, which is on the 8th of September. It is, that's right. No, it is the 8th of September. So if the committee is of a mind to defer that until the 8th of September, do we have a seconder? Are you going to move that?
I'll second it.
Councillor Rainey's going to second it. No discussion on that. I will put the motion in.
Aye.
Those in favour say aye. The contrary, no. The ayes have it. That's passed.
You do need a mover and seconder to defer the item.
That's right.
Yes.
Thank you.
That would be good if you could actually.
Right. Now, interest register. Any interests? No. We've had the public forum. Now we'll have the confirmation of the minutes of the 16th of June, and they're on pages 8 to 18.
Happy to move those, Councillor Courtney.
Righto. Righto. Thank you very much. We have a mover and a seconder. You've got that. O'Neill, Stevens, Rainey. Those in favour say aye. The contrary, no. The ayes have it. As Mother Teresa said, it doesn't matter. So we'll just accept that and move on. No chair's report. The chair isn't with us today, so we'll move on from there. Now we come to item 7, which is the Brook Waimarama Sanctuary, the Trust's activity update. We've managed, thank you, Robin, for being able to defer that for us. We've deferred that also to the 8th of September's.
Sorry, through the chair. Now we'll go to the new training.
It'll go to the next following year.
Next
year. It will. Right. We were going to transfer it to the 8th of September meeting, but it's now gone into the new triennium, which will be later in the year or even next year. So we're moving on from there. We don't need a motion for that, do we?
Yes.
We do?
Yes,
right. Would someone like to move then? Right, Gal, would you like to move? That it be moved to the next triennium? Seconded by Councillor McGurk. No discussion. I will put the motion. Those in favour will say aye. The contrary, no. The ayes have it. Item number 8 is a national policy statement for the Indigenous Biodiversity Exposure Draft. And Maxine Day is going to present on that. And is she with us, or is she? I notice we have Officer Barton with us, but.
So through the chair, if I can assist, I know that Maxine was going to be joining you, and I'll just message her.
Thank you. This is on page 21 to 38 of the agenda. This is a very important item for the prosperity of our region. And Maxine, we're just, oh no, we're certainly out of confidential business anyway. Maxine, you're in the chair. It's good to have you here.
Thank you.
Sorry if you've been rushing.
All right. There's some other people who are going to join me. Lee Marshall will be down any minute.
Who's coming with you?
Lee Marshall from the Science Environment team.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so this is a relatively straightforward report on seeking retrospective approval for a submission to the government on the exposure draft for the Indigenous Biodiversity National Policy Statement. Staff prepared the response that was attached to the report. I think probably the key message is that there was a exposure draft that was being tested for its workability. So a reasonably sort of technical review requested. And from the staff's perspective, there were a few matters that we would like the ministry to spend a little bit more time looking at, and that's outlined in the submission. And I'll leave it there. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you for that. Is this the second submission you put in on this particular piece of work?
Yes, yes.
How did it differ? Where were the main points for that? Is these them here on 4.3, are they? Are they?
Sorry.
No, that's the government's one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
3.3. Yeah.
Yeah. Coastal,
Identifies where the main difference are from the earlier draft that we saw.
but I see coastal marine areas. You're suggesting that be included?
No, sorry. The 3.3 identifies the differences between the earlier draft that the government provided and the exposure draft.
Right. But in your submission, you are rightly so suggesting that consideration be given to Indigenous biodiversity in the coastal marine areas and wetlands.
Well, we've carefully asked them to look at that very closely, because there is a bit of there's multiple NPSs that may exist across the same space, and that makes it very difficult to actually implement any of the policies in a cohesive way if they are not developed cohesively. So that is really a sort of challenge back to central government to make sure that that does work in that coastal marine area.
Good. All right. Councillor Neil Stevens, can you?
Thank you. Just on that point around the gap for coastal marine and aquatic Indigenous biodiversity, compared to I'm not sure if they've actually put in proposed. Do we have the proposed monitoring levels for terrestrial wetlands? Is that in the draft that we're submitting on?
So through the chair, terrestrial wetlands are covered under the scope of the NPSRB or the exposure draft.
Yes.
Marine wetlands or coastal wetlands are not.
Yeah, so I guess just the heart of my question is, compared to our current monitoring, if coastal marine wetland and aquatic Indigenous biodiversity, if we were to then apply sort of the same level that the NPS IB requires for terrestrial wetlands, would we need a significant increase in our monitoring? And I guess the same question goes for the expected monitoring of terrestrial wetlands as well.
Yeah, so the NPSIB outlines or instructs policies to be developed for the protection of those areas. And then there's monitoring that will be required for councils to do to make sure that they are meeting those policy standards. So at the moment, we don't have a terrestrial wetland monitoring program in place, but there will be requirements under the NPSFM to develop one anyway. Yeah, so there's overlapping policies. Yeah.
I might just add that there is a significant increase in the amount of work that will come through the NPSIB on councils. And once the final version is actually introduced and passed, then we will come back to the council with a bit of an analysis of what we believe that impact is going to be, and then that would need to flow into any long-term plan or annual plan budgeting processes.
Good. Thank you for that. Any other questions? Councillor McGurk.
Yeah. Thanks. Through you, Mr. Chair. I'm just thinking of the significant natural areas and the work that I know that we've done prior to this, where the areas have been mapped, identified and mapped, usually with the consent of the landowners. So a lot of the issues that have been apparent in other districts around the country haven't become evident here. And just reading through the submission is that you've highlighted the issue of mapping and identification. Is that, what sort of feedback have you had in terms of putting the requirement for the proposed draft exposure about mapping those areas, which is probably contrary to the way that it's incorporated? And we've been able to reconcile. I'm not sure if I'm making myself clear. But basically, we've got the SNAs identified with the consent of the landowners. So we avoided a lot of the issues about land grabs and all that sort of emotive language. But now the requirement with the draft is it is actually mapped and identified in the plans. And now we're sort of between plans. We've still got a plan, but we're looking at a different plan. How's that going to work? Or is that?
So probably the key difference between the SNA identification and mapping and the new NPSIB is that it takes a tenure neutral approach. So all land in the Nelson region will need to be assessed. At the moment, we've mainly focused on private land or areas outside of the conservation overlay in the RPMP. So that's the big change. As far as the criteria that is being used for the development of the draft Nelson plan, there's a large number of SNAs that have been identified through that process and private landowners have been engaged with through that process. The criteria that was used to assess that is we haven't done a full analysis, but it looks like it's pretty similar to what's in the NPSIB. So there's a lot of work that's been done for the draft Nelson plan, including consultation with landowners, that will be it will easily fit into our requirements under the NPSIB. That's it. Yeah. No, yeah.
Thank you for that. Any further questions of officers? There being no further questions, thank you very much. One and two, receive and approve. Yep. Thank you. Have we got a second? Rainey, opposite. Rainey, thank you. Any debate?
Yeah, I'd like to just acknowledge the work that the officers have done. This MPS is going to be quite onerous, and I think it's quite technical. And I would actually like to acknowledge the effort that the officers. Can you pass that on, Dave, to the officers about the work they have done to sort of get their heads around it and prepare a comprehensive submission. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Councillor McGurk, for that. Any other debate? Well, I'll put the motion. Those in favour will say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. Maxine, we don't need you any longer because we've moved the next item to the 11th of September, all going well. There's a feeling around the table that they'd like more consideration given to the matter. There was a couple of councillors that would like more to say on it. So thank you for coming. Good. Now we're going to move to Officer Pemberton's paper, pages 46 to 47 to 60. And I think Officer Pemberton is coming in on Zoom. Is she there? You know?
Yes.
Oh, good, there she is.
Whitney.
Welcome. We're just about to start your paper now, and so your timing was excellent. I hope you haven't been waiting long. 47 to 60, and Rachel, would you like to speak to this paper before we go any further?
Thanks, Councillor Courtney. I will speak to it. So this paper follows a discussion that we had at the Environment and Climate Committee in June, where the committee endorsed the proposed structure and content of the Nelson Climate Change Strategy, and agreed that the climate change strategy should be a strategy that represents the whole community and is not just a council strategy. One of we committed then, staff committed to go away and think a bit about the structure of the advisory group. So back in June, we went to the committee with two options. One option was to have an advisory group with elected members on it, and the second option was to have an advisory group which did not have elected members on it. So this report that is in front of you proposes to set up an advisory group with community representatives, iwi representatives, climate change experts, and myself as the climate change manager, but it proposes to keep governance separate and instead use the existing climate change oversight governance group as the governance mechanism for this advisory group. The reason we've come up with this recommendation is from talking to staff in other councils, in particular Auckland Council and Queenstown Lake District Council, who have suggested that the group operates more effectively. It's a smaller size, and recommended that we didn't have elected members on the group, as there's other mechanisms for ensuring elected members' views are considered throughout the process. So the report before you attaches the terms of reference for the Climate Change Advisory Group and asks you to endorse those terms of reference. What will follow this is we're suggesting that the Climate Change Governance Oversight Group goes away and comes up with a short list of potential members for the advisory group, and then we come back to the next committee meeting in September and ask for your endorsement to those recommended members through a confidential report. I'm happy to take any questions on the report or the process.
Yes, thank you for that, Rachel. It was very clear, and so is your report. We appreciate it, and you've put a lot of work in so far. Is this more or less an update for us, really, when you look at it?
It is an update, yes, and it is also asking you to confirm or agree to the terms of reference so that we can then go to the relevant people with the relevant expertise.
Yep, got that. Now, have we any questions?
Not a question, Mr. Chair, but I'm happy to move the
You're happy to move it? It's been moved. Have we a seconder? Right. Councillor McGurk, you got that? It's been moved and seconded. Are there any further questions of Officer Pemberton? There are no further questions. Well, thank you. I'm going to put the motion now. No debate? Right, I will put them.
Excellent step forward.
Right, excellent step forward, they
Excellent step
say.
forward. It's modelled some of the best practice from the Biodiversity Forum, which has been proven to, I think we're up to about our 50th, over our 50th meeting. So it's been going for the best part of a decade. and very, very effective at promoting change and strategies that we can implement with council. So we have a great model to work with. And I see this as much the same. So I'm happy to second.
Excellent.
And others, encourage others to support it as well.
Thank you very much. On that note, I'll put the motion. Those in favour will say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. Thank you very much for all you've done on this. Look forward to seeing you on the 11th or earlier. I think we've just about come to the end of our... Yes, we will. Yes, we will. Well, we've come to the end of our main agenda. And if I can have a motion now, we've got to go into confidential. I'd like a motion that we move, it's the justification for it's on in the agenda. It's been moved by Councillor Noonan that we go into confidential. Is there a seconder? Councillor Neil Stevens, those in favour will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. We will go into confidential now.